Hi, I'm Mike Sturman, a construction engineering and management major at Cal Poly Pomona, the cooler Cal Poly. And that'll make sense when D'Angelo introduces himself. Let's see, I've been doing theme parks all my life. I live in Southern California, so I've kind of been exposed to the little industry. And that's what kind of got me into it. And now I'm trying to get into big leagues and design for big companies. Let's see, I did a lot of the world building aspects of the park. I did the kind of BIM model, which you see behind Angelo right now, except he spruced it up with his wonderful art. But I worked with, everyone worked on a little bit of everything, and we created a really cool thing.
I am D'Angelo Reyes. I'm currently a junior at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, the real Cal Poly, and I'm majoring in civil engineering and I'm minoring in theater. And for this project, a lot of the things I did I did most of the concept art for this. A lot of sort of the both kind of art direction and I guess architectural work, you could say. But we all, like everyone's been saying, we're kind of we're all in our hands on pretty much everything, so we did a really good job with this. I'm very happy how it turned out.
Yeah, I guess I'll go last. Save the worst for last. That's okay. Hi, I'm Eric. I'm a sophomore at the Eric Ginsberg, sophomore at the University of Central Florida. My major is mechanical engineering with a minor in hospitality and tourism management with a focus in theme parks. For the project, I really focused on the dark ride, working on the ride vehicle and developing how it would work. Also composed the music for a light show that we'll talk about later. I did some CAD work, like the benches, the tables, little things that went around the park that went in our model. And yeah, I just worked on other things, like we all collaborated with everything.
So did you guys know each other for the competition? Or how did you form the team?
We noticed none of us go to the same school. Most of us aren't even in the same state. At the beginning of the summer, a lot of students got added into a Discord call for themed entertainment students. And through that, we all met each other. We found out about different events. We've been doing networking, just hanging out, playing games, and just kind of getting to know each other. And so when this event came out, I reached out to them and I was like, hey, are you interested in doing this project? And thankfully they all said yes because they're all amazing.
I believe my fact is correct that we have never met each other in real life yet. We've never given each other a high five, a handshake, none of that. We've all met through social distancing, the virtual web, and we've come together via the forms that Jess described. And everything we've done has been completely via the Drive on Google or just a whole bunch of different things. So it's a very interesting way to have met one another and just work with one another without being in that physical space.
And that's actually how we've been with the Coaster 101 team. We worked together for several years, never having met in person, just over the internet. And then we started meeting in person at least once a year. So as far as career paths, is your guys' goals then to work in the industry, like Disney or Universal or whatever?
At least for me, definitely would love to work in this industry. I'm kind of sort of trying everything out at this moment. I'm working a lot with concept art, mostly just to develop those skills, getting my degree for engineering to kind of see where that path can take me. So I'm hoping to kind of get that marriage soon in both of those sort of career paths, but that's kind of one of the multitude reasons that at least the entertainment industry is such a fun place and I think is where I fit in. So
I grew up in New Jersey, right by Six Flags Great Adventure, about 20 minutes away, and I grew up in the shadow of Kingda Ka, which has become a huge part of my life. Literally, since I've seen it, I wanted to build or design roller coasters, and as I started when I was getting older going to Disney World, I'm like, wait, someone has to make this. So I did digging and found that, hey, there's actually a career path to do it. I'm like, oh my god, that's what I want to do. There's no way I want to do anything else. So definitely career goals to be an Imagineer at some point. It'd be the dream come true.
If you had asked me a year ago, what do you want to do at post-college, I would have definitely said Imagineering, but just in this past year alone, my eyes have been open to just how big this industry is. I'm really interested in working in designing props, articulated props for attractions. And so I've been looking at all of these different companies in the industry that all do this really cool stuff. I think I wrote I wanted to be a roller coaster designer back when I was in 6th grade before I realized that I was afraid of heights and roller coasters aren't my thing. I've always enjoyed the industry. I've always been fascinated with the idea of designing something where its prime objective is to make people happy.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think a lot of people get hung up on, they think that work in the industry, you have to work for one of these big name companies. But yeah, there's so many little companies that help.
I mean, I wouldn't say no to working for Disney.
Yeah,
I have this year with so much beyond, like, I didn't know, like, I grew up in St. Louis and I had no idea that there was a big theme park architecture firm right downtown, like 15 minutes from my house. I had no idea until this past year.
I guess with me, my career goals, I'm basic. I want to go to Disney, but I'm very willing, and hopefully I will get the opportunity to jump along many paths in many companies during my path to hopefully the end Disney, wherever my career takes me. I don't know. I'm kind of playing it by ear. What I do know is that I want to do leadership. I'm an Eagle Scout, so as I got to that rank, I had a lot of experience leading others. My Boy Scout troop actually put on a haunted house, and that's how I kind of got the big bug of, oh, we're putting on an event to entertain people. And I just want to continue leading people, creating quality entertainment for them to enjoy. And I think Jess said it best is that there's not too many other places out there where you're building a location designed to make you happy, designed to make these beautiful memories that you can hold for a lifetime. I just want to help that. I want to make other people happy. And hopefully by leading large teams and inspiring, good creative energy, I'll be able to do that and guide everyone and just build something cool.
Were any of you guys affected this summer by the pandemic? Like, did anyone have any internships or anything lined up that got canceled or anything unfortunate like that?
Honestly, the way I look back on it, the pandemic kind of saved my summer, because without it, I probably would have gotten the job at local summer camp, local amusement park, and while that would have still been a good thing to do, and it would still gotten me something out to do with my summer, I would not have met any of these people. I wouldn't have met any of the 200 so other people that I've gotten to meet this summer through TA, through this competition, and through all the other things we've done. And so I see it as a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, I kind of second with Jessica on that one. Was on track to be hired by Disney to work in the parks during the summer, then everything happened, but I wouldn't have been able to develop skills or meet such amazing people if the pandemic didn't happen. So, yeah, it is a real blessing in disguise right there.
I quickly want to add a second to what both Jessica and Eric just said, and also the amount of portfolio work to just be able to show off is just such an amazing opportunity to have that. I don't think I would have been able to have time in any other, some time to do that. So, again, like Eric said, blessing in disguise.
And I don't know if I can add on to it much, but I was planning on getting a job at Legoland, and instead I got to do this competition. Jess and I and D'Angelo really worked on this project called STEP, which is a student-themed entertainment project, which about 70 people, we joined together and created a virtual theme park. And so it's just, yes, I didn't get the practical experience in the park, but I was able to get experience networking and building my network, which will benefit me more in the future. So, blessing in disguise, just good things, and just making the most out of a bad situation. We could have just sat around being like, mopey mope, watch Disney videos of rides in other cities all day long. But instead we're like, no, we're going to design some stuff for ourselves and make something good.
And I still did that.
We definitely spent
Piggybacking off of Mike, a big thing of summers for engineers is to develop our skills, and that's so big when you go into the industry, because these companies, they want to see that you've done something, that you have kind of an idea what's going on, but this competition and everything we've done this summer, it's just given us the opportunity to actually hone in our skills a lot more than we would have had to in any other situation.
I can see in the future, whatever job we end up applying for, they ask me a question, what did you do during the summer of 2020 when COVID happened? And I appreciate that I found out about this, that we all found out about this, and this is something that we can be like, yeah, we worked on this project together, and it went really well, and I made a bunch of new connections, learned a bunch of new skills. It's definitely something that I think I'm going to treasure for years to come in the future.
I think that's a really good positive mindset you guys have, and that's really good advice for other people who could probably use that advice.
It definitely still sucks that all of this is going on and that we're stuck in our dorm rooms learning or everything that's been going on. It sucks that we can't go out and get the internships for ourselves right now, but if what we can do to make the most of it is this, I'm pretty happy.
You just got to focus on what you can control, ignore what you can't. So how did you find out about the competition? It sounded like maybe it was you, Jessica.
We have a channel where different schools can post different design competitions, different calls that they're in, and someone posted, who was the one who posted it for TPEG? Someone posted a link to it in the chat to the title page, and I went to it, and I was like, hey, this sounds super cool. I wonder if I know anyone who'd be interested. So I sent these guys a message, and they all said yes. And we were off.
Yeah, you're
This-
lucky. When I was in college, like none of this was going on. I would have loved to have this kind of stuff.
I think COVID definitely kickstarted a lot of it because the big competitions like the Cornell one and Imaginations have all gotten canceled because
What's the one that hosted at Universal?
Ryerson.
Yeah, Ryerson.
When did that canceled?
They're doing a virtual competition this year where legacy teams can compete. And I'm not getting too in. I don't know too much about it because I haven't looked into it with my TEA, but in the style of Ryerson, but I don't think it has all the NBA on top of it.
yeah, but all of these competitions are kind of becoming inaccessible to us, and so a lot of students have started forming their own projects. You had competition-based ones like TPEG, and then you had more collaboration-based stuff like STEP, and so it's a lot of students who have similar passions, similar interests, similar life goals coming together to be like, hey, you want to learn how to do something? Let's do it.
I'd also like to bring up the extreme, or the high number of acronyms in this industry, just really fast. There's so many acronyms out there. When you make a guide,
ASTM and
ASTM, TEA, STP, so many,
it's like
LREG.
that though in any industry, because even like at the automotive world I work in, it's all acronyms.
It only becomes trouble when you start trying to learn it for two different industries at the same time.
So yeah.
As long as you stay in one, you're good. Switch to another one, you're like, what's going on?
Yeah, my job at the university, I'm doing research in the highway industry. It's just undergrad research, but like all the terminology, I'm just like, what? I don't even understand any of it. It's like they try to explain it to me. I gave up.
But you want to start walking me through your project now? So like once you found out about the competition, you formed your team, then what? And then did you start brainstorming ideas, or what was the next step after that?
Well, I'd say our next step was kind of research into what we had offered. So I believe the prompt for the competition was, here's a series of artists, and they had maybe about a dozen on there, and you were supposed to create a themed land based on the artwork from one of the artists. So we kind of looked at all the artists, and we started choosing the ones that really spoke to us. And they also gave us a location in Montana, and we did the research into Montana. And we kind of were looking at the ideas, seeing which worked well together. And eventually we found Yayoi Kusama, who we said, oh, this seems like the perfect artist. Her artwork is kind of, it's really out there. There's a lot of very fluorescent colors, beautiful shapes, and I think the people of Montana would really enjoy it. So we all agreed, and we all had ideas from that brainstorm, and we kind of chose her and ran with it.
By just looking at all the artists, listing them out, kind of finding different works of their art, and you can see after we picked Kusama, we found a bunch more, and we started drafting out different story ideas, different locations. We had to do a dark ride, an entertainment option, at least one retail, and one food place. And so we just
There was one quick service. Yeah, one quick service, one sit down.
I wanted to add real quick to what Mike was talking about. I think, at least for me, and if the three of you want to speak on this, I think Kusama's work gravitated to us a lot, mostly because the majority, not all, but the majority of her artwork is very three-dimensional and immersive in a very theme park-esque way. And I mean, she has like exhibits and museums that are very much in the vein of theme entertainment, like escape rooms. And then we all felt that that was something that we could kind of work with and find something unique to bring to, say, maybe a more traditional sort of theme park type land.
I know for me in particular, I was able to ask the question, what if this work were to be applied to other objects that she hasn't used yet? And kind of just expanding the scope of her work to not just one element, but to a whole land. And that kind of helped guided a lot of my creative decisions.
Yeah, for me it was like the theme park industry is trending in a way where everything is becoming very interactive, very touch-based, and at least for me, like the first thing I thought was like, okay, what kind of ride can we make out of this? Like with the other artists, like yeah, they would look cool and all, but with Kusama it was more of like, well, this could be like something that the guests and passengers and patrons can be like actively engaged in.
After we picked our artist, we started drafting story. We kind of just jumped right in. We split up all of our roles. We kind of split into different lands. So we mentioned lead and assist, but that was really just kind of an arbitrary role. We just kind of figuring out who would be the main two people working on whichever attraction. So like Mike and I worked on mushroom food, Angela and Mike worked on pumpkin, Eric and D'Angelo on the dark ride, and so on and so forth.
And all of these have actually gotten nice names, but at the very beginning we were just like, we know we need a food place and we want it to be in the mushroom section of the land. Where, hey, there's going to be a light show because that's our entertainment piece. We're going to put it inside a pumpkin. And of course that's a huge pumpkin behind Angela's face if you want to scoot over to the left. There we go. It's like I think 100 feet tall or something like that. It's a massive pumpkin.
I thought it was 200.
Mike, it's probably 200. I think the way I scaled it, it's at 199.6.
Oh, so it doesn't have the blinky red light.
It doesn't have the blinky red light.
It should be something like radius 100 tall height because it's sunken halfway down into the ground.
Quickly talk about sort of our I know we're probably going to go into a little bit more of the presentation, but I want to talk about sort of the not master planning, but kind of land design behind it. I'm sure Mike and Eric can probably speak a little more to this. But I remember we were sort of breaking up into teams and really further developing the specific attractions, restaurants, etc. We were kind of talking about different ideas, sort of ranging from, more nature-inspired to, I guess, more human-based, like industrial. I'm not sure the wording for that, but basically our discussion sort of eventually moved towards a more nature-based experience. I mean, we have many more boards on this drive of just ideas that we found and fun inspirational photos, but a lot of the sort of themes and work done by Kusama sort of aimed more towards nature, and we thought we could kind of make something more compelling and more evocative, I guess, with sort of that organic feel.
A lot of it was, we knew we had the two lands, we didn't want them to be too far apart. We kind of gave ourselves, so for this competition, we were not given a specific size for the park. So we kind of gave ourselves an arbitrary restriction. We tried to keep ourselves within a relatively realistic, I suppose, size. We didn't want to go too big, and so that forced us to be a lot more specific with our placement of things. You can see over here, we wanted to have a much more open dining space, and so we ended up, this used to be just a path straight through, and so we ended up turning it more into a plaza type deal. The pumpkin you can't even see from here, but the interior is a restaurant instead. Originally, one of our original designs is actually just having the entire park inside of the giant pumpkin.
Yeah.
That didn't necessarily end up happening, but you can still see kind of remnants of that, where the restaurant is in here, it kind of lines the walls, and the entrance to the dark ride is there as well.
Yeah, kind of going into like the land size. I know me and Mike spent a couple hours on Google Earth looking at Disneyland and Disney World, trying to figure out what size lands they have, because Galaxy's Edge is like 15 acres. That's way too big for like a theme park in Montana. I'm not sure, I don't remember the exact dimensions of our park now, but like I remember looking distinctly at, I think it was Frontierland in Disneyland is like I think that's a big thing we looked at for land size. And it was just a lot of looking at 10.7 acres, there we go. Just what the current industry has in land size, because we weren't given the constraints, as Jessica said before. So it was kind of a very open-ended thing with it. And I think we kind of put ourselves in the corner because we also have two different like lands in the land. We have, I guess, there's the mushroom area, the pumpkin area, and then a whole area devoted to our maze on the left side. So we kind of split up our big land into three smaller ones.
If I remember correctly, kind of going off of what Eric was saying about Frontierland and Disneyland, I think it's almost the size, for everyone familiar with Disneyland, of the Rivers of America as well as most of Frontierland. So that's kind of the scope of it, and it functions in a similar way. You have one big e-ticket attraction, you have mazes, you have some restaurants and entertainment areas, some retail space. So it's kind of composed similar to that.
The big thing with the presentation was that it was literally, it took a PDF of these slides and submitted them. So it's a much more text-heavy presentation than I think we would have liked, because we weren't able to record ourselves talking over, present it to a real person. We had to kind of get across all of our ideas on the slides, so you can see.
Goes against every single presentation thing we've ever been told.
Also, while all being anonymous as well, like we couldn't sign it, and couldn't cite at least our work, so that was an interesting sort of work process we had to make.
That's especially
like we're doing this interview, so now everyone will know who's behind this project.
It wasn't just us, all of BC Computer as well. All all have amazing work. After all of the competitions were over and we all found out what place we all got in and how the competition went, we all got together and we had a presentation night where we all just shared our work with everyone. So that was a lot of fun.
And now if you look at the TPEG website, or Portobello Ohio website, they have put all of our names on it now that we've all been ranked.
This summer's definitely started up a lot of websites. There's a few Entertainment Association students wiki now, which is a lot of fun to edit.
It experienced a lot of change, especially during the process, because we were just finding different things and different ideas that we wanted to try out. Kusama and maybe her own life story, and it sort of evolved from this sort of here's her childhood sort of thing into what we have now, which ends up being you start off. So your guests are invited. Yeah, guests are invited to come to Kusama's childhood gardens. And those gardens served as sort of a place, like this. It's a very magical place located in the forests of Matsumoto, Japan, her in real life hometown, and it serves as her own creative vessel for her own art. Basically, whatever she makes, whatever she has made, can be seen on sort of the plant life and the flora throughout the sort of gardens area. And we dubbed the entire land the Infinity Gardens. And the basic theme of our land, and also if the three of you want to chime in on sort of the themes, by all means, it's the experience and the harmony between nature and imagination, and sort of how art can still inspire awe despite, age or, I guess, outlook on life.
I wouldn't say it better. That's really good.
Yeah, no, that's like textbook right there.
Cool.
So you can see the picture behind D'Angelo is the same one that we have right here. This was the CAD model, the SketchUp model that D'Angelo then went over and he did all of his concept art magic on. D'Angelo, you're an amazing concept artist. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I can't draw a straight line with a ruler, and I'm always impressed with what you did.
You're very kind, Jessica. Thank you.
That was one of my questions, is like, what tools and technology did you use? Because a lot of the artwork and stuff's really good.
Yeah, thank you. At least for my general process and how I do things, at least for this picture in particular, like Jessica's been saying, like Will was saying, this is a SketchUp model. So it starts off as a SketchUp model. I think Mike and Eric worked really hard on that. That was served as our, base to work off of and to add. And at least for me and my sort of creative concept art process, I like to take those SketchUp models just for, perspective reasons and shadow reasons. They're very helpful, so you don't have to kind of go in and do all that hard work yourself. It's a little bit of a cheat, but it ends up paying off in the end. You basically take that, and at least for this picture right here, I added some photo bash different things, at least for the sky, for the trees. Those are all pre-existing photos, sort of overlaid with filters to make them look a little more artsy. But then also includes a lot of painting, and I use Photoshop. That's sort of the main thing I use for all these digital pictures. So all the grass and the trees I hand painted in. Same with all the pumpkins. The pumpkins took a while because they're all those dots I had to individually put in there, which was really fun. Yeah, kind of that same process I did throughout the rest of the concept art within our entire presentation. And you sort of find both unique and creative ways to make something look really good while still you're kind of budgeted for time, but still trying to find a way to keep all those details in there and keep attentive and make it look good and presentable.
For a lot of the non-traditional building things like the large pumpkin and the fountains, which you can't quite see in this picture, there's one in the very back. We use 3D modeling programs. I know I use SolidWorks. Eric, did you use Inventor?
I used Inventor because I was more familiar with that.
I used SolidWorks, and then we realized that it was kind of getting difficult to transfer the SolidWorks into the SketchUp, but by that point, it was
too late.
It turned out fine. Honestly, I think transferring it into a SketchUp smoothed out some of my rough edges.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, it was a very arduous process to get me and Jessica's 3D models into SolidWorks because the format that SketchUp. I'm sorry, it's 9:30. Yeah, so getting it into a SketchUp was so arduous because you had to, at least for me, I had to go export it from Inventor, put it into Blender, which is another modeling software, and then export it from that, and then send it over to Mike. And then it was the completely wrong size, so he had to scale it down. And then sometimes it would crash his computer because there was too many polygons. So it was a lot of back and forth with the modeling. There's a lot more, I have more complicated models that would ended up in the final SketchUp file, but it was definitely worth it in the end.
And these three are such good 3D modelers. I can't do any of that. And like they just show up here and do that. Like they make all these really cool stuff. And just sitting here going, wow, okay.
And I had gotten SolidWorks this summer so I could get my certification, and so I already had the program and the practice, so it works out in the end. It looks good. Mike did a fly-through of it that you can find at that YouTube link if you want. We can send it to you later. We have an entire key of the entire book, which is the same image we showed you earlier of the top down, but you can see noted all of the different places that you can go. Mike, do you want to talk about your utility complex?
Utility complex. This is my little baby. So one of the things you have to always think about when you're designing a theme park is that it's not just a ride, or it's not just a roller coaster or a restaurant. It is a city that has to have a lot of utilities in it, and it has to have places for people to go to do their stuff, or for staff members to rest in. So we decided to incorporate a utility complex to house all that. So you have some restrooms in there, ATMs, a break room for the cast members to go into and just rest. We also have a little deck, and it's very centralized to the land. So right when you enter from, I believe, the northern entrance? No, the western entrance.
Southern?
You guys see my cursor?
Western? Yeah.
When you enter from there, it's like you're right in the middle of the land. So you kind of just go there. It's a very natural gathering place, and you just kind of decide where you want to go from there. So it's a very, it's methodically placed in the very central location of the land. And, you can't just build something crazy and cool with a million props everywhere. You have to have a functional side to your land as well. And that's what that kind of serves.
Yeah, it's very realistic.
So our first big place was our pumpkin. The interior featured a sit-down restaurant we called The Carve. Interior was basically a hollowed-out pumpkin. You can see the entrance to The Carve, which is the restaurant right here. Then you could enter those elevators, and it would take you around, and you could sit on the curve of the pumpkin, and you can see the entrance to the dark ride queue right here. It's not shown in this image because we wanted to get the entire view of the restaurant, but there are also large globes hanging from the ceiling that every hour on the hour light up, and you can see there's lights behind the walls, and you'll see that later in the presentation. Basically are synchronized to music and do a short little light show. Nothing big. It's not like a nighttime spectacular, but it's
It's like the Tree of Awakening at Animal Kingdom. Like every hour for a 10-minute quick show. Like, here you go.
Yeah,
just
the Carve.
We have I think my favorite part of the project actually was we got to develop the menus for our two restaurants.
That detailed and all the food and everything, and even the prices.
We went through pricing. We used I know I did. When I was looking at the prices, I went to all the dining apps for Disney, Universal, Six Flags, Busch Gardens, and I was just like, what is the average price for this kind of restaurant, for this kind of restaurant? Are we overcharging, undercharging? Nothing too specific. I don't know how much some of the ingredients cost. I don't know if we're breaking even, but it was a very interesting experience to kind of decide what do we want for appetizers, main courses, kids meal.
At least the pumpkin sort of serves as our land's anchor, and it's the biggest. It's kind of it's our land's weenie. So we kind of went all out with sort of what the pumpkin can offer and what can be found there, especially with our restaurant. But we've very much focused this restaurant. It's our high-end sit-down into Japanese American fusion. Just again, kind of leading it back to our story, because that was story is one of the most important things when it comes to this kind of thing.
I know it was important for us to incorporate the kind of Japanese background of Kusama, but then we also were like, okay, we're in Montana, we can't quite get a lot of those fresh fish foods there, which is very important to the cuisine. So we're like, okay, let's do American fusion. Montana, they have meat and whatnot. So the menu that resulted in that is a very nice hybrid, and I'm very proud of it. We did a really good job, and there's a lot of good stuff on there that I'd be also willing to eat.
We spent a lot of time thinking about this, but we ended up calling it Beyond Pumpkins Into the Elements of Art, and it's really a one-of-a-kind experience that we developed. I don't think there's anything like it. It's very much of an immersive 360 experience. Yes, they enter a pumpkin, and they essentially are taken into the art, as the name suggests. Basically, we have, I think, 4 or 5 different show scenes that D'Angelo made an awesome layout for. It's ridiculous how amazing he is. D'Angelo, I'm going to keep saying this whole time because we're going to get to the storyboard, and I'm just I don't know how he did it. I can't even draw a stick figure. D'Angelo really is. No, so the story of the ride is basically you're kind of just, it's honestly, like, think about it, it's basically Super Mario 64. Like, I just thought of that now. You're like going into these paintings and this art that Kusama has created, and every scene we're in, you go through is inspired by her art. And so you can see in the storyboards, you kind of just start in. Okay, so the first area kind of is like the loading area, and you come outside of the shed. I don't know why. I just had this obsession with the shed because I kept thinking about from King's Island.
You wanted a shed since the very beginning.
I wanted a shed since the start.
You fought for the shed.
I really fought for it. So basically, you start out in like a very normal garden, and basically what happens in between each room is almost like a vortex of color, kind of. D'Angelo, you said it was more like 2001: A Space Odyssey is what you said, right?
Yeah, if you know that sequence with the star tunnel, it's like the lights. It's very eclectic, kind of crazy. But that was our main transition we've had through our transition between each ride show room was with some sort of like star tunnel. I kind of dubbed it star tunnel, but more so like what you're saying, your color tunnel. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like things are projection mapped onto objects, and because you're using projection mapping, you can simulate like color and lines and shapes being sent forward through the ride, and that'll make sense as we go later through it. So the first room is kind of Matsumoto, her hometown, and there's little hints of her artwork, like there's little flowers and mushrooms, and it's kind of highlighting like different shape and lines. A big theme that D'Angelo had the genius idea of is the elements of art.
This ride sort of serves the purpose of, the prompt talked about, taking artists from history and sort of making them into a theme land. And we wanted to kind of keep with that prompt sort of maybe central message, that art history sort of thing, and dive deeper with, the aspects of art and, again, the elements of art. So we got line, shape, texture, form, space, color, value, harmony. It's a lot of words, but those sort of 7 things that kind of a lot of artists follow, those 7 elements kind of make up a lot of, majority of art on our planet. A lot of Kusama's work, when Eric and I were kind of looking around for a show scene inspiration, really were able to, highlight those specific things, which was pretty surprising, because like each individual piece was a different element, which is a really cool scavenger hunt to have.
Yeah, kind of bandwagoning up D'Angelo, like everything that she's made can almost be filtered into adhering to two of the elements of art, which really helped us like sorting out what should be in each showroom.
This ride sort of serves to tie in the harmony, the nature and art harmony themes that we were talking about earlier. This ride sort of is the big representation of that. I would want to say the explicit representation of that, our entire land's theme, with those elements and with that sort of nature opening and closing that we have. It sort of serves as that, I'm saying vessel again, but it's that extension of our theme. And you get to ride in a pumpkin.
You do get to ride in a pumpkin.
That's the best part.
You spent so long rendering this pumpkin.
I think I spent a total of 5 days unable to use my computer because I spent time making the most 4K render you could.
I'm making it a show.
It is a 35-second animation. Basically, the ride, it almost looked like a teacup was what it was inspired by. Basically, what we wanted to do is to really give riders a 360 experience. So to do that, your vehicle has to be able to spin on an axis. So our ride vehicle is unlike anything. It's a tracked ride vehicle, kind of like Winnie the Pooh or Alice in Wonderland, but it adds the teacup element of spinning. So as you're going through the ride, you're spinning super slowly, so you can take in everything you see around you. So like you're not going to miss something that's behind you or to the left of you, to the right of you. So you can really, it's really just a full, all the senses are being used, being able to see everything. No, so the spinning is controlled by like a motor on the bottom that would be going like super slow, like crawling speeds. Like,
so just
think of something. Yeah.
It's not like facing you to.
No.
I think we had a moment where we debated allowing people the ability to spin, but considering a very large portion of the ride is lights everywhere, possibly flashing lights, moving lights. We didn't want to risk causing any sensory trouble, epilepsy issues, we would rather be a slow controlled spin so you can definitely see everything than give everyone the opportunity to spin and risk injury.
Yeah, with like speed, it's more of just like something if it was on display and it was spinning like that kind of speed, like super slow, like by like the ASTM standards, a seatbelt wouldn't even be required for this ride. Like that's how.
ASTM standards.
Yeah, that accelerations would be like basically zero, but slow moving.
Did you render the car in, the vehicle in?
What program did you render it in?
Oh, a program. Oh, sorry, Inventor. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun to see kind of grow.
I love the walkthrough. D'Angelo and I, we worked a lot on this walkthrough. And this is definitely tapping into the natural side of her artwork. And kind of, I know when I was working on this with D'Angelo, this was where I was asking the question, okay, if her spots were to go on to other things, what would that look like? So we just kind of went through thinking of cool places for that to happen, whether it was like an old shed that had a whole bunch of tools and stuff into it or in it, and let's say it was a bit like rust and all those dots started rusting over on stuff, kind of like that, but the idea evolved. And we kind of created this wonderful wonderland of various installations. So I know we used some for large flowers. She has these like hugging people. We put that up on a cliff top, and she has spears on water. We also incorporate that in there. And it's just kind of a little adventure and nature course for you to walk around in and just enjoy the world and take a hike and learn some art.
And again, it leads back to, again, our main theme of, harmony and nature. That those harmony, art, and nature, those three words are the big ones of this place. We have our big Isao Falls overlooking this attraction. It's the kind of the icon of the place. Yeah, this one was fun to design.
Falls were named after her son, I believe.
One of her children, I want to guess, son, I think.
My personal favorite part of the walkthrough is it's almost a character encounter. In 2019, Kusama designed Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade float. And so we have an encounter with it where you can get a picture with the float.
And this is a top-down map of the whole place, and there's a splash pad, there's just so many trails. You can go all the way around, and honestly, it's a bit like Tom Sawyer's Island. You can just kind of go there and spend as much or as little time as you want. You just kind of enjoy the location.
It definitely harkens back to that really early 50s, 60s. Yeah, both walkthrough attractions and very nature inspired. Like, it doesn't look very intense or exciting per se. But once you get in there, that's kind of not the point. It's more so not relax, but taking the scenery. A feeling of serenity almost. But
and I know it was enjoyable, not like being. Like looking at the various attractions that themed entertainment could offer, not just your e-ticket rides like, a dark ride or a roller coaster, but like, oh, what is something more experiential that we can have someone do, and really exploring that avenue, which doesn't get as much time in its spotlight, but it is really important and really incredible when they're developed well.
And probably doesn't cost as much as a $25 million roller coaster.
Exactly.
Of course, for each location, we did have a retail location. We did have to design some specialized merchandise items, and you'll see more of that in the later section. But we did decide we would be selling scale models of the flowers that you would see in this art installation. Little glass flowers. You can purchase merchandise there.
That's dotted paths.
They're all really awesome.
When you're doing competitions like this, we weren't asked to go this detailed. The prompt was very vague, didn't have anything. And if you're doing a project like that, it's important to really show you know what you're doing, or at least you think you know what you're doing, and just doing as much research and making it really as thorough as possible, so then it feels real. And that's what I'm really proud of with this project, is that it feels real. It feels like a place you can go because everything makes sense and it feels like it's there for a purpose.
Yeah, when we were done with this, I was like legitimately disappointed. Wait, I can't visit this land? Seriously? I want to experience everything.
We had two retail locations. We had the one by the flowers, and we had the one in the pumpkin patch. Framing the main pumpkin in that middle area, a little shop, and you could exit through the back and kind of wander through the patch. There wasn't necessarily a lot there. Most of the things that were sold were inside of that main tent, kind of like, this was our little bit of Montana that we fit in there. Like, you go to, in the Midwest, we have a lot of country fairs. We have the farms that sell pumpkins, and you have the big tent that always sells like apple jam and pumpkin jam and all the good stuff. And so that was what this was kind of loosely based on. We had our primary merchandise item, which was very special to me. I was very proud of this one.
This is
It
yours,
was very
baby.
smooth. These were called the Infinity Pumpkins. So we combined two aspects of Kusuma's work, which was her infinity mirror projects and her love of pumpkins. Like, a lot of her pictures have to do with pumpkins. And so we created this decorative piece that you could basically twist the top of the pumpkin off like you were about to carve it, and then the inside would be an infinity mirror. So you can kind of see in the SolidWorks rendering the lights down there that would ring and would go down all the way to the bottom. It was a fun thing. It definitely wasn't a cheap project. Something like this would definitely cost $50. You could get it gift wrapped and saved at the counter for you until you decide to leave the park. But it was more of a art experience. We did sell other things at the gift shop. We sold keychains, fuzzy socks, postcards, lots of things that had stamps of her art on it. Personal favorite was the face masks. I'm still debating buying those.
They're really nice.
And we made sure to look and see if she had any books or films out. And so there were a few of them. And there, you can see right there. And those were books written by her or autobiographed by her. And so
I believe she's making a graphic novel of her life right now, which is really cool. And it's just popped up right after we did this project. I'm like, oh, that's cool. She's inspiring.
a bunch of merchandise, just different things that you could buy. Like,
The Milky Way. This is me having a lot of fun in SketchUp. This is the quick service restaurant of the land, and it kind of takes over this whole mushroom area. And the kind of story is you're going into this mushroom forest, and you're just surrounded by all this foliage, and it's like moist and damp, and you have these massive mushrooms that are just hanging over you. And it's just a cool place to go and eat. And you can walk around and enjoy the atmosphere. It's named after the enoki mushroom of Japan, or just of mushrooms, I guess. I think they're very common to Japan. Native to Japan, as it says in the little note.
he texted me one day and was like, hey, guess what? I made one of our menu items. He just sends me a picture of the burger.
Yeah, the menu, Jess and I, we worked on it, and we really wanted to make sure that it was very kind of natural, earthy flavors. And one day I decided to make one of our menu items, just because, I needed lunch, and, it looked really good on the project and whatnot. So this is the Portobello Burger that has tomato, lettuce, garlic aioli, and a side of yam fries. And it tasted really good.
Yeah, this was a fun one to do. The menu design was really interesting because I did this one and then I did the carbs menu. And so developing the pricing and also the layout for those was interesting to look at. Like I noticed for a lot more quick service menus, you would have more $13.99, $11.99, $7.99, and you would have those more decimal points. Whereas for your sit-down menu, you would just have more solids, 10s and 5s at the end, and that would just kind of be it. You wouldn't have as many of the decimals. And so I thought that was a really interesting process to kind of notice what were different in the different menus.
Yeah.
This menu would be something that you'd kind of pick up at the counter. They'd probably also have something over the top of the ordering space, but we just wanted to have a menu.
Next up, we have an image of the actual restaurant where you pick up your food. Oh, yeah. So very much inspired by Bengal barbecue. You're literally getting your food from a mushroom, a giant mushroom that has a stove inside, but then also kind of leads to a larger kitchen in the back, which connects to 2 kitchens for the entire facility. I just love the idea of being able to order something from this large, oversized mushroom, and you can see them preparing it right there. So that's like, wow, they may have gone my Portobello Burger by just chopping the side of this, restaurant, and then throwing out a burger. But of course, we get all of our food from sources and not just chopping it off of a concrete wall.
Ironically, I think the real mushrooms that have the white dots on the red are very poisonous. I'm not sure.
I spent a lot of time in SketchUp just modeling this, and it turned out nice. I love it.
Our final bit of the park was our light show. We called it the Hymn of Life, which was actually named after this piece of art right here. And so the trick with this show, and you can see why I'm not a concept artist, this was with a ruler, and it's still not straight. But the trick was we would have these globes that would come, and every hour on the hour they would light up to a synchronized music track. We would have a scrim and then a set of mirrors so that when the lights went down and the globes kind of behind the mirror lit up, you could see them through all the walls. And so that's kind of represented here in the concept art, so it looks like a much bigger room than it actually is. Presenting music that was done to an original score that Eric did. So we weren't quite sure how to show it off. I wanted to learn how to use a light sequencer, and so I found, I believe it's called X-Lights, which is a Christmas tree light sequencer. And so I used it, and we just kind of figured out how to get the lights to move on beat to Eric's music, which I don't know if you can hear it. Can you hear the music?
Yeah, it's kind of not there.
Okay, let me unshare and then reshare with the music.
hopefully we're not taking too much of your time, and this is going to be a pain to review, I'm sure, but we're gonna work.
I spent like 3 days composing it. The only thing I did for like 72 hours.
Typical
Yeah, it was-
composer.
Yeah.
I'm really old school, and I used actual sheet music to compose it. The piece was composed of classical Japanese instruments because a big thing we wanted to feel like it belonged in the land and not just something that was haphazardly put in, so it felt authentic. So we used classical instruments like the koto and what drum was it?
What are taiko drums, flute?
Taiko drum. Then there was an instrument called Fantasia for some reason. I don't exactly know what it is, but it sounded pretty. But it was all inspired by classical pieces. Like the beginning part is inspired by the Japanese classical tea ceremony, and the second part was a more intense version because, I don't know, in my head I just feel like in the general scope of the show, there has to be like an Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, with Act 1 being more peaceful, Act 2 being more aggressive, being more attacking, and Act 3 being sort of a resolution to whatever problem that is. So it kind of just, the song has some sort of story with it, even if you don't look too deep into it.
In the final part, it would definitely be longer. It'd probably be about 10 minutes. But
10 minutes.
we didn't feel that a 10-minute presentation of that would be necessary.
No.
D'Angela took that first picture of the gardens and made it look all nighttime.
Yeah. I'll kind of cap this off with this picture, kind of keeping in tandem with that very mystical, again, harmony between art and nature. This was very inspired by, the Pandora, very neon type kind of nature aesthetic.
Bioluminescence.
Kind of.
That's Jessica's favorite word.
Bioluminescence!
Bioluminescence, that's it. A lot of the plants, the majority of the plants in this land are pretty bioluminescent, and the pumpkin, all the dots on the pumpkin end up lighting up at night, which looks really nice, kind of in those striped forms. And the garden, the dotted paths attraction where the garden is, and the waterfalls is an entirely different place at night, so it just lights up, and it's a whole amazing place to be. But yeah, that's our presentation.
Awesome. Great job.
Yeah.
One of the only questions I had was, so how was it working virtually? I see you used Google Docs to help like communication. So did you have like Zoom calls as well, or how did you manage?
We kind of saw a little bit. We had that Google Drive that we started from the beginning, and we shared everything on. That was there from the start, and that definitely helped with organization. We had a Discord channel that we all spoke in, and we could kind of go. Sometimes when we met face to face, we would meet on Zoom. I think we made an effort to do that at least once a week.
Like weekly meetings for each of our attractions from like food and land, like at least a meeting once a week, and then we would have a general meeting like every Sunday.
I think registration started in June, which is when we signed up. I think we signed up fairly early.
Yeah.
The competition
We were done.
Yeah, the competition proper started, like, sign up was cut off at like the beginning of July, but we had already begun by that point. So I'd say officially, I think it was 1 month of work time, but when we signed up, it was still it was mid-June, I think.
And then the final submission was due August, I think I remember it was August 13th.
I thought it was August 18th.
It was August 13th because it was the day before marching band camp. I was like freaking out because I was driving down to Florida and I'm like, oh my god, I have to make sure this is done.
We chatted a lot on Discord whenever it wasn't, necessary to like call a whole Zoom meeting and all that. Again, since none of us have met in person, we're not really used to anything different. It's very much, we all are very active I've never been more active on social media before than I did with Discord, just being able to talk to everyone. So it was helpful, I think, that we had already met and been talking to each other and working through things like Zoom and Discord, because we had practice with it and we were able to make that transfer really well.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm speaking for everyone here, but for me, I thought this was going to be very difficult, the whole virtual thing, because I'm a very hands-on person. I like doing things in person with people. But honestly, it was not that bad. Like, the whole virtual thing, like, it went so seamlessly. I was kind of like, wow, technology is awesome. And it's just like, I never heard of Zoom. Like, it was just, everything went a lot smoother because, engineers and people in the industry, they have to adapt. So definitely a testament to our skills in adapting.
It definitely helps now because like we're back at school and all my friends are like, "How's Zoom work?" And I'm like, "I've been using it all summer. We're good. I can help."
Well, I think that's pretty much all the questions I had. Is there anything that we didn't go over you guys want to highlight, or?
I think this is the most thoroughly we've gone through our
Yeah.
including ourselves.
I do want to mention that again, like this was, we did come in first with this competition, but all of the other teams that competed all did such an amazing job. Like I mentioned at the beginning, we got to sit together and see all of their work and they saw ours and everyone was so impressive and I'm just glad to be working with everyone. It's kind of weird, like sitting here working with these people and knowing that 10, 15 years down the line, we could be working on something together.
And as a first theme park design competition I worked on, like,
Yeah, me
Okay.
too. I was like, wow, this is kind of
Right now,
awesome.
be like, yeah,
I'm done. I'm good.
won it.
I got first place. That's all I need. Thank you. Good night.
Angela, you can retire.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
very excited. Stuff like this.
Undefeated theme park champion. Theme park
I'm excited. Stuff like this and stuff like STEP have definitely, I've seen kickstart a lot more student-run activities. I'm excited to see in the future how interconnected the theme entertainment student kind of becomes because I can see us continuing a lot of these things far into the future because even just 2 years ago when I was looking at colleges and I was like, I don't know where I'm going to go. I know I want to work in theme parks. Having something like this program or these people to talk to would have made all the difference.
I know there's a lot
Yeah,
of
it's like,
entertainment students kind of hiding underneath their shells, just looking, for the light. And I think finally they're like, oh, we can come out. There's things for us to do.
yeah. I don't think there's a better time to be a student, honestly. Like, I feel bad for the seniors because of all the situation we're in, but like the freshmen, sophomore, and juniors right now, like I see a renaissance in the theme park industry coming with all like this stuff that we're doing. I'm really excited to see, like, especially like now that we know each other and like I was like, wow, there's other people out there, and it's like, okay, so what are we gonna make? Like that's what I'm really excited for once we're in the industry.
Cycles back.
It's gonna be so different than what's now. I'm so excited.
It cycles back to that very beginning when we were talking about this being a blessing in disguise. I think I got more connections this summer than I would have any other way that this summer. I know I'd like to continue working with these guys in the future. I like to continue working with everyone else we've met, and I'm very grateful that I've had this opportunity to meet with them.
Congratulations again on winning the competition, and thanks for meeting tonight.